So now that we've gotten through the disaster movie that happened, we're going to take a look at Godzilla 2000. This was my very first Godzilla movie, and it'll always be my favorite. I was scared when I first watched it as a kid, but there's nothing to be scared of anymore. So I guess let's get started.
In 1954, the King of the Monsters was introduced. In 1975, he started his decade break. In 1985, his decade break was over. In 1995, Japan terminated Godzilla. In 1998, Roland Emmerich screwed the name 3 Ways from Sunday. But a year after the disaster, Toho furiously whipped together a new Godzilla movie in which should have been the Emmerich version. Godzilla 2000 was the farthest Toho ever pushed a Godzilla movie. It turned out to be a huge success too. In fact, it was so big that TriStar, looking for amends after the '98 movie, produced an Americanized theatrical version in the US, which surprisingly brought in roughly $10 million at the American box office. It made me mad when I heard from a friend who saw this in theaters that people started walking out saying it looked unrealistic. What's even worse is to know that the reason people were walking out is because they got confused with the '98 version. They thought it was a sequel to the Emmerich movie. This film tends to get overlooked for that reason by the general public, but the real fans knew what was going on.
So now that I got all that out of my system, let's talk about the film.
The film itself is astounding, especially for 1999 keepsake. Godzilla's design is scary and it looks incredible. His head is bigger, his dorsal fins are spikier, and he has 4 toes on each foot. Plus his dorsal fins light up pink this time instead of blue, which is kinda cool. As far as the plot goes, it's nothing special. There's a team called the Godzilla Prediction Network, like they're predicting a weather or something. Anyway, Shinoda is the main character in the film who tries to study Godzilla, while Katagiri, the main villain and head of the CCI, tries to kill Godzilla. So with the story mostly focused on those two, there's a rock laying at the bottom of the ocean that surfaces in this funny kind of scene and eventually stands up in the water. Not too long after, Godzilla rises from the ocean and starts to make his way to land in an insanely unique set of camera angles, even created for this sort of genre. He walks right into the middle of the army, who start shooting at him for the 23rd time, of course. It's like a tradition. You have to have the military. There's a shot that still sticks in my mind. Ooh, that had to hurt. But I'm pretty sure you're never gonna guess what happens next. The rock gets out of the water and starts flying. What the hell? Now we know it's gotta be another monster, which is a nice surprise because in the most beginning Godzilla movies he's always gone solo. So this was kind of nice to see that there was a new monster for him to play with. Ooh, this is a nice shot. After this stare down between Godzilla and the rock, Godzilla blasts a chunk off of it, and now it looks like a huge mountain sitting in the middle of the water. So with Godzilla nowhere in sight, whatever this thing is starts to shred the crust from its body, and we can now see that it's a UFO. Now there's been many descriptions of this: a flying whale turd, a bicycle seat, a nose, but overall a bicycle seat is the best way to describe it. So now that we know it's an alien, what are we going to do about it? Well, it's a good thing Godzilla's around because he comes and confronts it, and that's where the fun begins. First, the alien forces roots from the ground that wrap themselves around Godzilla, in a kind of weird way, but they prove worthless. Then the UFO smashes a building on top of Godzilla and traps him momentarily, long enough to steal some of Godzilla's DNA.
To any of my friends who are watching this, these upcoming parts may look a little familiar.
The DNA turns into a ball and starts to sprout legs. So we can see the CGI monster that looks like a mushroom, and then it transforms yet again.
Now, I think I might be able to explain what's going on. The alien steals some of Godzilla's DNA so it can take on a life form of its own and breathe the air that we breathe. But what it didn't take into account is that it wouldn't turn into Godzilla, but a huge freakish clone alien that can regenerate as quickly as possible.
So now let's see what it looks like.
strikes a bearing resemblance, doesn't it? Originally, Toho thought of pitting Godzilla against Anguirus or King Caesar, but then they got this brilliant idea in their head to make a sham freak that resembled the American Godzilla, which is why we're only going to see this monster once. Now that's funny.
What's interesting to note is that the Japanese version's music was blunt and unfitting, so we bring in J. Peter Robinson, whose work included Wes Craven's New Nightmare, to shake up things, and he did a fantastic job. When Godzilla meets Orga, there's a variation of the Godzilla Rampage that he created, in which you heard in the opening credits of this show. There's also a nice little scene where the UFO comes out of its wreck, and it looks like him and Orga are going to double team Godzilla, and Godzilla's not too happy about it. So after a while, Godzilla blasts away at Orga, and he just keeps regenerating his body back. Now Godzilla's thinking, God, how am I going to get rid of this guy? It isn't until Orga opens his mouth all the way, everyone's thinking, what the hell? Believe it or not, Godzilla just sticks his head in there. And for a good reason, too. Because he lights up like a Christmas tree and frickin' fries that punk! Now, most people couldn't figure out why Katagiri let Godzilla kill him. Well, it's quite simple. I'm not going to tell you. Buy the DVD, listen to the commentary if you really want to know. There's one last thing I want to mention. Godzilla looks bad in a CGI shot, especially the underwater one. Well, technically that's the only one in the film. Just put something in front of the camera and call it good.
On camera, there's not a whole lot to say about this movie. This is the one where I first learned about Godzilla. Dad took me into the video store one day, picked it off the shelf, said, "Here, we're going to rent this and I know you're going to like it." I didn't prove him wrong because I loved it. From then on, I made it my goal to see all 29 Godzilla movies. Never imagined that I'd actually own all of them. So tune in next time for some more goodies coming along the way. Hope you enjoyed the 3-parter. See you soon.
Oh yeah, and here's a few Godzilla roars. Yeah, that's cool.